We're trying to film in here.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Allison Best, and this is Confessions of a Pro Climber. I just posted a thing on my story about this the other day. I think that is still super impressive because it's impossible for a replica to be exactly the same as the boulder is outside. But I do think there should be another word for it, whether it's like a replica flash or a different word entirely. I think as 3D printing and 3D scanning become more and more popular, that will be something that people, and especially people at the top level, start to try to do to be able to do an outdoor boulder problem quickly. But I do think it should have a distinction between that and a normal flash. I think the hardest thing to digest about outdoor climbing is that it's almost impossible to feel like you've conquered a specific grade, because there's always going to be a boulder that is super not in your style or really greasy, or the conditions aren't good, and all boulders are not created equal. So there's always a boulder out there that you can be humbled by at any grade. Anybody is more than capable of having their opinion on any boulder. But I would also say just because a boulder is downgraded once doesn't mean that everybody should take it at that specific grade. Everybody can have their own opinions on the grade of a boulder, but until it's consensus, it doesn't matter so much to me. Yeah, I think I have had a good experience throughout my career sort of watching climbing shift from being super male dominated to now having these, especially just these pockets of really strong women that are able to climb together and lean on each other and create these communities within the climbing community. When I was growing up as a kid, it definitely was way more male dominated than it is now. And I do feel like female pro athletes face more scrutiny and need to do more to be taken seriously, for sure. But it's so different now than it used to be. And I'm just really grateful to have a lot of female friends and friends that are female climbers and that are climbing really hard, and that push me and that climb with me and create this sense of community that there is in a lot of different places in climbing gyms all over the country. Is comp climbing worth it? I think absolutely. I think comp climbing is for sure worth it. I competed from the age of 9 to 25, and it was one of the greatest decisions I could have made as a kid, and I'm so grateful that I got into it when I did. And there is nothing like the feeling you get from having your training in comp climbing pay off in one moment and having the crowd get behind you and hearing all the cheers. And yeah, obviously it's a different sensation topping out a boulder outside. It has its own benefits, it has its own emotions, but it's so different than comp climbing, and there's just absolutely nothing like it. Conditions at international World Cup events need to be more standardized, and there needs to be more rules about what types of venues can host comps, because as everybody knows who's climbed outside or in the gym, conditions matter. And so there needs to be just less opportunities for rain delays and for the sun getting onto the wall for half the field and various things like that. Like, I think comp climbing is an indoor sport, and so we need to shift to being more strict about the way conditions affect comp climbing. I think it would be great to see prize funds at World Cups increase so that it made sense for athletes to travel there and to compete, and rewarded them even more for getting onto podiums. I will say a lot of those top athletes also have personal sponsors, so they're not making all of their money from comp climbing. But I do think that that's a bit of a give and take. Like, obviously the climbing community was really grateful to Alex Honnold for acknowledging that in the most recent World Cup, that the athletes on the podium aren't underpaid for that success.
Very nice.
Did they win money for these comps?
They
must,
do,
right?
yeah, there's money. Don't ask me how much, I haven't actually got a clue.
Is it enough to live off of?
No.
Do you think? No.
No, it's not.
Is it enough to even fly to the comp and back?
Just about.
So they're actually all going negative to come to the comps. They're not even covering expenses.
It's hard.
Which is definitely true, but I also think the IFSC has tried to make it so that people have to pay to watch World Cups, and people were outraged by that too. And so to increase the funding and the amount of money that athletes win at comps, I think the climbing community has to be willing to pay for that coverage, and that money has to come from, it's not like they're hiding money from people. So I think as climbing changes, it'll be a lot of changes for both spectators and the athletes themselves, but climbing is growing more and more. And so hopefully the prize money at events will also grow with the sport, and then we'll be at a point where it won't be a conversation anymore, and it'll be a way more logical amount of money to be winning at competitions. I've always heard about the iconic Mad Rock heel and people kind of finding it to be a superpower, especially for heel hooking crimps, and crimpy climbs are kind of my favorite climbs. And so I was always intrigued about it, but for some reason never tried it. And then this past season, I was actually working on a boulder with my friend Zoe, who's also a Mad Rock athlete. And she let me try her shoe, and it just was like, everybody's always said that heel was just magic, and able to just grab onto that crimp with my heel, and it felt like a third hand. And it was like, I feel like anybody who climbs with that Mad Rock heel has had like an aha moment about how good it is. And so that was my aha moment. It was mostly once I stopped comp climbing that I realized that I had high potential in my fingers, just because that's less significant these days in comps. And it wasn't until I went outside and like learned to full crimp that I realized that my fingers were strong. Oh, there's a train in the building. Sorry. Obviously, it's more motivating to train the things you're good at than to train your weaknesses. And it's obviously important to train both, but I do think especially for outdoor climbers, it's really important to train your strengths too, because if you're going to send a boulder that's at your limit, it's probably going to be in your style and it's probably going to suit your strengths. So I also think while you want to work on your weaknesses, you also want to push those strengths and see how far they can go, because every person has something that is a superpower in climbing, and the more you can lean into that, the more likely you are to be able to reach whatever your potential is in that specific style. But I mean, my weaknesses is pretty weak. I'm really bad at lock-offs and at pulling. And so one of my friends and climbing scientist, Tyler Nelson, said that you might as well lean into your finger strength, because your potential is probably a lot lower in gaining things in your weaknesses, but ideally at some point you'll be able to like hit a hold and hold so much force on your fingers that you won't have to bend your arms at all. So that's the goal.